Boxing beats and rhymes. No one can do it better.
Frank, I saw that you guys posted on social media the court case with Chris Eubank Jr. It has been settled. So just tell me about that situation, Frank.
That's it. It's been settled, and I'm very happy with the settlement.
So in 2016, Chris Eubank Jr. was the British middleweight champion, and he withdrew from a defence against Tommy Langford that was scheduled to be in Cardiff for October. Eubank pulled out with a severe elbow injury. Warren had won the purse bid to stage the contest and a documentation to prove that Junior had signed his part of the deal. Warren said he put tickets on sale, he paid for the venue, and he won around $200K in damages.
Frank Warren behind me, lying and cheating his way through boxing for the last couple of decades. Sued me for a couple $100,000 a few years ago, so obviously I was never going to go with him.
So it sounds like an out-of-court settlement. If it was a courtroom judgment, we would have probably heard some details about it. But look, it's all about money. Chris didn't like paying Frank $200K, and he voiced his frustration. Called him a scumbag, called Eddie a scumbag, called us Allen scumbags. But boxing is a business. Chris is not a promoter. And if the deal is right, he'll work with Frank Warren. He just worked with Eddie Hearn. Whether he calls them scumbags or not, it doesn't really matter. At this stage of Chris's career, he can't rely on Ben Shalom alone to be his reference point to make fights in the UK, which is a very lucrative territory. And Chris is fully aware of that. Napa, he's fully aware of it. His whole team is aware of that. They're not dummies. So could we get the Hamza SHEERAZ fight? If Hamza beats Berlanga, it's a huge fight. And Chris is probably due a move up to 168. If this Conor Ben rematch doesn't happen, we'll see. Both parties are happy with the settlement. So I'm assuming a bag load of money ain't coming out of Chris's pocket. So he seems happy. And Frank seems happy. So win-win-win all round. Because when they had the fallout last year, it was a day or two before the Riyadh season card was about to start. And they both put out retraction letters online and were very apologetic. And that obviously had Turkey's influence behind their retractions. I naively thought everything was peace and love. But Frank the next day told the media he's going ahead with the lawsuit. So Turkey might have had a hand in smoothing this one over. So don't be surprised if you see a Riyadh season card with Chris against a Queensbury fighter, Hamza, Denzel. But more than likely, if Billy Joe Saunders can get the timber off, it's a huge fight. If the Conor Ben Eubank fight don't happen, Junior versus Billy Joe Saunders, Lord.
Boxing beats and rhymes. No one can do it better.
Edgar Berlanga, 28 years of age. Edgar Berlanga is the prototype boxer / villain. See, Chris Eubank Jr. called himself a villain, but Chris is not a villain. He's just unlikable to the people who don't like him. He's not a villain.
11 years of being the bad guy. A super villain, if you will.
I don't think so.
Edgar, N-word, blinged up, constant obscenities being screamed, told his opponent, you have to kill me, TS in the building. Very confrontational, very aggressive New York is his boxing character. And it's not everyone's cup of tea, but from what I see right now, he owns it. If you own it, I can have a grudging respect for it. If he comes out and say, I'm misunderstood, I'm not the villain, I'm not this, I'm not that. The way I see it, either stay in character or don't get in character. In Edgar's last fight with Matchroom, before he became a free agent, he had to play the undercard to Ammo Williams in Florida. Ammo is a resident of Florida. And Edgar wasn't happy about that. He thought he should have been headlining, probably in New York, on the back of losing a UD against Canelo, who's smaller than him. And Edgar seems to think he was more competitive in that fight than he actually was. So he's a little deluded. But because he's into that hip-hop street culture, he's doing that fake it till you make it type of thing. It wouldn't shock me if a lot of his jewels were either rented or costume. But at 28, boxing being a short career, his best win being over who? Padre McCrory, Steve Rolls, Jason Quigley. Coceras had him on the canvas. He's not an elite fighter by any means. Hasn't won a sanctioning belt by any credible body. So he has managed to inflate his market value with his persona. And to the purists, to the real boxing fans, to the quote-unquote old school boxing fans, that might not be authentic, but he's trying to get paid. It is what it is.
I want to stay paid.
Bob Arum, he runs a tight ship on paying out them purses. No one, including Floyd Mayweather, when he was pound for pound #1 in the sport, gets paid over what Bob has as their perceived market value. No one. And that's why Edgar fell out with Top Rank. And that's why he ran over to Eddie Hearn. And because Eddie is not buying into what Edgar tells us he is, he's fell out with Eddie. And he's doing this free agent thing. It worked out well because they called him up to fight on Riyadh season. So it's worked out well. And he knows if he gets blown out and exposed as a hype job, he would have cha-chinged up before the fallout. Before everyone starts making the memes and calling him all types of hype job, wannabe tough guy, and having their way with him online, he would have been cha-chinged up already. Got to secure the bag. It is what it is. And he's doing what he's got to do in a very tough market to stand out amongst the real talent and the demands of the industry and media.
But don't stutter.
I'm starting to change my mind on his fight with our lad Hamza SHEERAZ a little. I was influenced in how I was breaking down the fight with Edgar's persona, his aggression, and perhaps Hamza's responses were a little timid in comparison. But this is not a street brawl. This is boxing. Edgar's been decked at 168 by fighters like Koceras who don't hit as hard as Hamza. Edgar's been outboxed by fighters who don't have the type of pedigree as Hamza. And Hamza has been outboxed by Bradley Skeet. But I think consistently, Hamza may have put in the better performances out of the two. Hamza's jumping up to 168, but he's still a little taller than Edgar. And if he can get his jab going, like Hamza said, work his way into the fight and add in the 1-2,
The combination, the jab, the uppercut.
he can get Edgar out of there. And he can do me and the UK proud. And I was celebrating. Now, I'm not saying that to say it's going to be one-sided. Like I said before, he will have to battle fire with fire. And Edgar's being very belligerent. He doesn't want to get beaten by this English muffin. Hamza has to let Edgar prove his toughness. You're going to take punches? We got you covered.
Boxing beats and rhymes. No one can do it better.
Since I've been watching boxing, you've got the Frank Brunos, Lennox Lewis, Ricky Hattons, Tyson Fury's, Anthony Joshua's, Nassim Hamed, Calzaghe. He done about 50,000 at the Millennium. The David Hayes. Probably some names I've missed out. The difference between them and Johnny Fisher is they've all held world titles and have been world-class fighters at some stage of their career. Let's face it, Johnny hasn't even got over the area level hump. I know he won the area title, but even an area title was achieved with manipulation and strategic matchmaking. Me and Bass the Kid are the only two channels I know who pointed out that TKV beat Harry Armstrong on a Ben Shalom card, only for Harry Armstrong in his next fight to get that crack at that vacant title against Johnny Fisher on a Matchroom card. Meanwhile, Ben Shalom, TKV's promoter, and Al Siesta, or whatever his name is, the matchmaker, stick Jamie in the York Hall to fight this Brazilian puncher, 13 wins, 13 knockouts, 1 loss against Sergei Kuzmin. Tell me where Eddie Hearn would have pushed Johnny Fisher in his 5th fight in the ring with someone 13 wins, 13 knockouts. Johnny's management wouldn't have allowed it and his dad wouldn't have allowed it. And Eddie Hearn, for a start, would never have did that. You want to put him in there with his 13-0 banger in the bloody York Hall? Bass the Kid asks Eddie Hearn, how comes Harry Armstrong is fighting Johnny Fisher for this vacant Southern area title when TKV beat Harry Armstrong? And Eddie kind of glossed over it and said, oh, we might fight Jamie. We still might fight Jamie. So this matchmaking thing that I've been banging on about, it's very important to study. Because while Jamie missed his opportunity, and payday, may I add, what was Ben Shalom doing? What was his matchmaker, Al Siesta, who I'm not a big fan of? What were they doing? At 5-0, Jamie's considered a prospect. But Al Siesta was more concerned about saving the York Hall show over preserving TKV and developing him. Now I understand he's under pressure to make that York Hall show run like clockwork, but Jamie has got to look out for himself. And there's a reason Eddie Hearn didn't go for Jamie TKV, and I'm not saying Jamie is a world beater. I'm not even saying he necessarily beats Johnny Fisher. But Matchroom had their eye on the ball. They knew TKV was going to be a lot trickier than Harry Armstrong. And we can make that assumption based on TKV's last performance against David Adelaide, where he was ahead on the scorecards before he got TKO'd on the break. Very controversial, so much so that the British Boxing Board of Control have ordered them to run it back. Johnny TKO's Harry Armstrong, becomes Southern Area Champion. One fight later, the Copper Box phenomenon starts against Alan Babbage, sells it out. But if you look under the bonnet at his resume, the Dave Allen fight was the right fight to take, looking at Johnny's record statistically, but it shouldn't have been on Riyadh season, should it? The only case I can make for it being on a Riyadh card is it being in the prelims. But Eddie done such a great promotional job that the possibilities became endless for this kid. The question now, after his first career defeat, legit career defeat, is does he have the resolve to take advantage of the incredible marketing strategy behind him?
Boxing beats and rhymes. No one can do it better.
Mr. Pads was asking Beats, how did Johnny Fisher develop such a fan base? I get it, there's a lot of Romford geezers, but it's crazy since he's only Southern Area level. Johnny has his whole family mucking in. His mum, his dad, they deliver a lot of the tickets personally to the people who purchased them. Base the Kid also mentioned he had the university demographic following him. And I'm using Jamie as the example only because I've mentioned him in this section of the vid. Jamie likely doesn't have his parents so involved in his career for reasons only Jamie could share with us. I don't know what that is. But guys like Johnny, his dad's involved. Guys like Ricky Hatton, his dad, Ray, who used to play for Manchester City, was heavily involved in cheerleading Ricky Hatton to them big crowds he was doing in the UK. 30,000 people went over to America when he fought Floyd Mayweather. Now, 30,000 people didn't get in the arena, but they did travel across the pond and the arena was full. Ricky had the guys in the pub, the regular 9-to-5 workers supporting him. He was friends with Bernard Manning, the comedian. Oasis, carried his belts out. And in terms of an attraction in the UK, Ricky was a phenom. It is what it is. His rival, who was also signed to Frank Warren at one stage and became WBC light welterweight champion, Ricky became IBF light welterweight champion, was Junior Witter. The fight never happened. Junior Witter could never compete with Ricky's market value over here. They both signed with Frank Warren around 97. The windows of opportunity for that fight were, let's say, 2002 and 2006-2007 when they were both champions at 140. But Ricky had his career-defining fights against Mayweather and Pacquiao. Junior Witter could never attract the names like that. The biggest name he got was Zab Judah, and he stunk the place out, Junior. Let's keep it real. You know, Ricky got the breaks in the ring, like the decision against Collazo for the WBA welterweight title was a bad decision. And then the Juan Lezcano fight, where he got hurt with the body shots, and the referee started warning Lezcano for low punches, and then Ricky's lace came undone, and they gave him an eternity to get it sorted out, when the tide was clearly turning in the fight. As far as I know, Junior Witter never got them type of breaks, but Ricky was the cash cow. Johnny got the gift decision against Dave Allen in the first fight, December gone, 2024. He's the cash cow. The difference between Ricky and Johnny is Ricky was a good amateur, and he was very talented, and that transitioned into the pros. Johnny, not on the same level. But the marketing for both men, spot on. Only Ricky took advantage of his marketing, and Johnny's struggling right now.
No one can do it better.
And that's why you get situations like I was explaining with Jamie TKV against the Brazilian. And even Saturday's card, where Johnny was knocked out. I pointed out that George Liddard, Jimmy Sains, and Kieran Conway's opponents had a combined record of 5 stoppages between 3 of them. And they were undersized. But this is how it works on a big promotional outlet in boxing. Like Dave Allen, when he was in his mid-20s and he was undefeated, 9-0-1. Matchroom pitched him in there with Dillian White and Luis Ortiz back to back. Unfortunately for Dave, Dillian was just making his way as a rising contender after the fight with Anthony Joshua, which was a huge success. Matchroom had Luis Ortiz signed, world-ranked contender. Anthony Joshua was IBF heavyweight champion. Dave was way down on the list of priorities at the time. It is what it is. And he was used as cannon fodder. Eddie Hearn might take offense to someone saying that, but he was being used as cannon fodder. When Johnny was 9-0, would he have pushed him in there with Dillian and Luis Ortiz? No, because he's being prioritized. He's being protected. People talking about Eddie pushed Johnny in too hard against Dave Allen. Unless you've got receipts from December 2024 saying, oh, this is risky for Johnny, he might get knocked out. You are overreacting and overanalyzing the events. He was supposed to beat Dave Allen on paper. In the last 4 years, Dave was languishing on the small hall circuit on Fight Zone, fighting nondescript opponents. The one time he popped out from the small hall circuit and fought Fraser Clark, in his own words, he swallowed it. And then we said, let's put Dave back in his box and not bring him out for no big events.
The Fraser Clark fight wasn't a hard fight at all. I think I caught with like 2 clean punches the whole fight. And you know, when I put that in the corner, looking back now, I'm ashamed of myself, really, because it was a very cowardly thing to do.
So let's not do the Monday morning quarterback thing. Oh, we all knew Dave was going to kill Johnny. Stop it. The first fight was really close, for one, but just stop it. I've had idiots on here. Oh, I like the channel beats, but you're writing off Dave like you don't know tactics. Another nutter saying, oh, you owe Dave an apology. And listen, bring your receipts or some proof where you said that Dave was going to win the first fight in December emphatically. Bring it. Now, after the first fight, there was definitely a sway of people who were thinking, yo, Dave's going to kill him in a rematch. My pick only changed when Dave came in very heavy on a weigh-in. At first I had it Dave inside the distance, Johnny on points. Then when I saw the weigh-in, I said Johnny on points. Big deal. Eddie Hearn definitely would have preferred Johnny Fisher to win. Probably got a longer contract than the 2-fight deal that Dave signed with Eddie before the rematch. But the 2-fight deal is the best damage control Matchroom could get in the event of the catastrophe for Johnny on Saturday. It is what it is, you know. Look at Top Rank. Jared Anderson got destroyed by Bacoli. Bacoli gets knocked out by Joseph Parker. And in all truth, a Jagba should have took Bacoli out, because surely Bacoli wasn't right, wasn't 100% going back in the ring with a Jagba so soon after the Joseph Parker fight. But he couldn't get it done. So that's 2 top-rank heavyweights who have failed to get past the elimination stage against the same opponent. Throw Tyson Fury in the mix. He lost twice to Alexander Usyk. Is this the downfall for Top Rank? They don't have a significant heavyweight in the mix right now. Richard Torres, I guess. But that's boxing. Promoters lose, sometimes they win. It's not about winning one event or having one great event for a promoter. It's about keeping the game going for the whole calendar year. It is what it is. Fisher capitulating in the manner he did, and AJ going out how he did last year. It's not a good period for Matchroom. Of course not. They don't have a significant heavyweight in the mix right now. But if Daniel Dubois loses to Usyk, Frank's just going to have a stack load of heavyweights on his roster, and they can't all fight Usyk at once. And they've got to be matched up, kept active, and Frank's got to feed them all. It's what it is.
Boxing beats and rhymes. No one can do it better. Boxing beats and rhymes. No one can do it better.